Hey everyone, you are listening to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. This little banter is about a car ride long and features your hosts, JJ Parker and Melissa Albers. JJ owns a tech company and Melissa has been a coach working with influencers for the last 18 years.
Melissa, this episode, we're going to talk about the Self-Awareness Journey book.
I don't want to.
I know. That's why it's going to be an awesome episode.
I don't want to. You can't make me.
Well, for a little history, let's lay out the timeline of this book, this idea of the book.
Good idea.
In a previous episode, we covered yours and my history of choreology, right? Mm-hmm. We did choreology together for years. Then after we shut that down, we both went back to our regularly scheduled programs, which was me running Tightrope, you doing the Authentic Leader. And we didn't really see each other for like a year.
Right.
I mean, a little bit, but not like we had, right?
Exactly.
And then I remember when we got back together, you told me you had started working on a book. And that was kind of like the early self-awareness journey stuff.
Yes.
Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
Yep. And I should also say that writing a book was sort of the culmination of all sorts of things. From the time I was young, people would tell me, oh my goodness, you should write a book. And I had a lot of, so for a really long time, people said, oh, you should write a book, you should write a book, you should write a book. And then I was part of the John Maxwell team for years, and that was just waves of book writing were going through that group. Oh, this is the thing to do. So there was there were a lot of factors, not just the timing of me thinking I should get my thoughts out, but all these pressures that had been kind of building.
That's interesting. So you sat down, here you are, roll up your sleeves, start writing a book. To me, that sounds pretty intimidating. But so what did you do? Like, how did you tell me about how, when you decided that you're going to write that book, what did you do? How did you start? Like, blank piece of paper, let's go.
No.
Romantic author style.
Right. I got my.
That's what everyone thinks. I just sat down with a big piece of paper and all just wrote it out.
And a crow quill and an ink jug.
Yeah, perfect.
This is even more interesting because now that you're asking me this question, I never even thought of it until now. But I put it out in the universe. I said, if I'm supposed to write this book, then I would like a sign. And immediately, within 2 days, I got a LinkedIn ping from a publisher. And I get those frequently, by the way, so it's not like it was the single time. But there was something about this one that I was like, oh my gosh, this must be it. I was looking for a sign, and this publisher has a model that is a great model. I really like the publisher. He's got a good personality, and it seems like it's a really easy project. And he is suggesting that you can actually finish a book in 12 weeks. So in addition
Sounds awesome.
What could go wrong? By the way, don't ever ask yourself that question. So I got into his program. And he had weekly calls, and his program, I still to this day say is fabulous. I've had 2 clients that I've referred there, and both of them have published books. So the process was great.
So you're working on this process, but you didn't get yours published.
No,
right? You
I
didn't
hated
get
it.
Done yet.
I hated it. And
why did you hate it?
Because I hate
at that moment. What did you hate?
My personality is one that does not like to be told what to do. I'm not proud of this fact. It's just an is thing. And I felt that so there were all these warring, competing feelings. So the external stuff was, this is a great process. It came exactly when I asked for it. Everybody's been telling me that this is an easy thing I should... No, they didn't say it was easy. They kept telling me, you should write a book. And so all of these outside factors made me feel like it should be easy. The inside,
Okay.
my feelings, though, were in complete opposition to that from the very start. Something inside of me just said, this doesn't feel right. I can describe it no other way than that. It just doesn't feel right. But I ignored it. I ignored my feelings. And
Yep. The tried and true method.
exactly. The tried and true method of ignore what's coming up for you and go do something to replace it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I just felt like it really wasn't, it didn't feel right even from the start.
And so you kind of tried to get through it, and then you just stopped.
So I mean, I really did push it. The book was to be 8 chapters. I finished the majority of all 8 chapters. I had probably 20% of the book left. And I just could not make myself finish. I just couldn't do it. So I just stopped.
Yeah. Then you and I started working on other stuff, right?
Yep.
Maybe that was maybe the stop, right? Like when we started talking about the self-awareness journey,
Yeah.
and making this podcast and making teachings, then the idea of the book just went away, right?
Yeah.
For a little while.
For a long
We
while.
just
Like over a year.
started making content. So it's the same content. It's the same idea. It's the same stuff.
Yes.
Like the stuff we talk about, the podcast, all the videos, that's all the same stuff.
Yes, exactly.
So what's interesting is in one medium, I would say, book writing, it was hard. And in another medium, just podcast, it was easier for you. Like,
Yes.
what do you think why do you think that is? What was happening there?
I feel like the difference between writing a book and collaborating with you and co-creating, I think that the work that you and I do, it's based on ideas. Those ideas are vetted out through a little bit of thinking, but most of the idea then is created through our feelings and the energy that is created through our working together. In writing a book, it's all analytics. It's all in your head. And finding that feeling breadcrumb to attach to that mental body is really challenging for me. It was for me. And I think that's the big difference is the book was all by myself and it was all in my head, like coming from my heart. You know, I just didn't trust that it was going to be the same energy. I didn't trust that it would be.
Wow, there's a bunch of stuff in there that
I know.
you just said. Well, the first thing I would note is you said co-creation, right? Which I think is really interesting because, both you and I have had business partners. I'm going to talk almost in the context of business because I think business entrepreneurship is still creation and creative.
Yeah, definitely.
But the idea of this like solo entrepreneur that can just like bootstrap themselves up to amazing success is like a fantasy. It's like, to me, it's false. It's like a few people have done it, but it's not the norm. Having a
Totally
business
agree.
partner is amazing because of co-creation.
Yes.
And it's a very powerful force. And when it goes well, it goes really well.
Yes.
when it goes bad, it can go really bad.
Really
as we've
bad.
Probably discussed.
Yeah.
But there is something when people come together to create. It's really powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
And we talk about that a bit. How you and I have a bit of that spark together, and
Right.
and it's great.
Right.
And the idea that someone can will themselves somehow to do work just as a solo activity is sometimes like sensationalized, I guess. Maybe
I
in
totally
media.
agree. I totally agree. And I would still say that anybody who does make it on a solo that is singly known, what you don't know is all the legions of people behind them that have made it
Right.
possible.
Yeah.
So it's almost
It
perspective.
wasn't actually a solo endeavor.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yep. Okay, so we started creating stuff, right? We started the self-awareness journey, and we started making stuff. So we've been doing that almost 9 months. I was looking at the calendar.
Oh,
like
was
we've been
it?
working out for like 9 months, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Do we start in March?
I have
Maybe
no
earlier,
idea.
maybe a year. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't either. I
It's-
never keep track of time.
It's
I'm
around a
terrible.
year. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we, transparently, we do the podcast, we do these video teachings, we do this stuff on LinkedIn. We've done a blog, we have a website. We're trying to build a tribe of like-minded people that like talking about this stuff. But we don't really have much of a plan.
No. It's an art project.
It's an art project, you're right? It's an art project. So whenever we sit down to make a plan, we get all wrapped around the axle. Like we can't even
I know.
do anything.
Which, by the way, is by the way, is validating my whole fear of staying in my head too much.
Well, I was gonna say it's terribly ironic since both of us are basically in the strategic planning business.
Exactly right. And I enjoy that. I love the business.
People literally hire you to make plans, yet you can't make your own.
Exactly.
This is not a good commercial for you, actually.
I think we should stop the podcast. Look at the time.
Customers, stop listening now.
I need to hang
I
up.
gotta go.
Oh.
Well, I think most, for a variety of reasons, we purposely are staying out of planning on this little project. And,
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's an intentional choice.
But sometimes we sit down and we say, okay, what are we going to do next?
Right.
So a few months ago, before the holidays, we sat down and said, okay, we got a podcast. We got these video lessons. We're doing this LinkedIn stuff. We're not quite sure, what resonates with people, what's helping. We're just throwing stuff out there in the universe. And we're thinking, what should the next little chunk of this project be? Mm-hmm. And I don't know who suggested it. It was probably me. I said, hey, maybe we should finish that book.
No, it wasn't. I'll tell you
Right?
exactly what happened.
Was it? What? Oh, you remember. Okay. Because
It was
I
me.
think we were at my office.
Yes, we were.
We were planning things.
Yeah, we
Yep.
were at the high top, and we even had the big screen going, and we were going to do some strat planning. We definitely were. And what had happened is one of my clients said, oh my gosh, I really want to write this book. I have the whole book in my head. I don't know how to do it. And I said, well, I have a really good person for you to talk to that I very much trust. I have not finished my project, but that's not on them. That's on me. And so this client went into that process and finished a book in 8 weeks.
Wow.
And so during coaching, this client is like, Melissa, why don't you just get back? You should do it. How come you're not doing it? Well, how far are you? Well, how much would it take for you to finish? And I was like, well, look at how well he's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just in my head too much when I was doing it last time, and I should enter into the experiment again. Maybe I should give myself some grace
Right,
and try it again.
Yeah, and here we are. We've made, 9 months worth of other content. You
Yeah.
should have,
Yeah.
right? Like it all makes sense. That's logical, right?
And we had built so much
Like,
around
you've got
the
a big-
self-awareness journey. Like I felt so good about the energy around it. So I just thought, well,
So we decided, so we decided that our next shippable project for the self-awareness journey was to get that book out.
right.
Right. You're spoiling the end.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, yeah, so we, I went into organized mode, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like, what do you got here? Let's dive into this. Like, I pulled out all the chapters, I organized all the ideas, I started doing that, and then you started writing. Mm-hmm. And at first, it felt like there was some good movement.
There was. Yeah.
Right. I don't know how it felt for you, but at first I was like, okay, we'll collect all this stuff and then we'll get going. But it didn't last very long.
No, it was right before the holidays, and one of the processes of this publisher is that you write every day you time block. You write for an hour. Mm-hmm. And I had a really hard time actually getting into that even. But I convinced myself that it was just because I was really, and I am very busy with coaching clients. So I was like, well, it isn't about the book. It's just about my open time. So I'm just going to keep pushing. And somehow I actually did get myself into a flow where I felt, oh my gosh, look at this. And I think I nailed, because I basically took all that stuff. You helped organize it. And I basically started over. And I got into about the 4th or 5th chapter, and I just hit a wall again.
Yeah. Well, the writing every day, I think, is a good technique, right? And like my favorite book, The War of Art, talks about just write every day. It doesn't matter what you write, just write. You know, I think the publisher you're following, same philosophy, right? But sometimes that doesn't feel right. You know, this idea that you should just plow through your work regardless of everything else might work for some people, but I don't think that's a universal. You know, and in some ways that might be pretty damaging.
Especially when we've been developing the self-awareness journey like we have and becoming more and more aware, being more self-aware of myself, being more aware of my feelings, not pushing them away and replacing them with doing. Like there's been a huge shift for me in that. And so running back into this process now with the added chirping in my head of, well, your customer just did it. How come you can't? You know, so and just all sorts of competing narratives again about why I shouldn't be able to just do it. And I was right in that. Why can't you? Why can't you just do that?
Yeah. Like judging yourself,
big style,
comparing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the things that we know lead to, bad work and unhappiness.
Totally.
The other thing that happened was that project quickly became not our project, but your project.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I had much to contribute. After I organized it, I didn't feel like I had much to contribute.
Right.
So it went back to a solo project.
Right. And you were also very busy with some of your other stuff. So we hit the holidays. So all these competing things happen in one spot.
Yeah, my day job was really getting in the way.
And my day job had gotten quieter for a little bit.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so I think all these things happened at once.
Yeah, so that period of time was weird for us, right? I mean, for us as making the self-awareness journey, it was weird. It was like I was busy. The holidays were kind of a little bit out of our routine, obviously, out of our routine, I'll say. And then you were kind of working on this solo part of the project.
Right, feeling really
So the energy
yucky.
For us got really weird.
It did.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And it kind of came to a head this week. I mean, I think it took this long. I think it's actually still this week, not last week even. But I feel like it took this long to to unravel and then make itself known what was happening. And being more like, I think for me, the hardest part was, and I said this to you yesterday, I think the hardest part for me was being in that stage of, we didn't exactly know what we were going to create next. I'm working on this thing that I don't really feel good about. You're really busy doing your other stuff too. And it just felt like the self-awareness journey was in a spot that was not, I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling. And it scared me, actually. I got fearful that something was really, really bad.
Yeah, like you even asked me, do you still want to do this?
I did.
And
yeah.
I could feel that in my chest. Like, what do you mean, do I still want to do this? Like,
yeah.
Yes, I do. Like, what? Yes. Like,
yeah, we're just trying to figure out what to do, Melissa. Relax. Yeah.
But I think I don't think that was an inappropriate question, because I think because the way you and I were engaged in this project together, it was so, the energy was so strange that was a completely legitimate question.
Yeah. Yeah. And so.
And go ahead. I had one other deep insight to that
I'd
part.
like to hear it. I'd like to hear it.
Well, like we talked about this, and what it felt like a little bit was like towards the end of Choreology, it almost the same thing happened, right? Like,
yes.
Like I had to go focus back on Tightrope, and you were working on a solo thing. It's like almost that same. It probably wasn't nearly as intense, but it was just a little glimpse of that.
Yes. Yep.
And that was super scary because neither one of us really liked that.
No. And in Choreology, I think we worked so hard and we got all this content done, and we were in this phase of trying to get customers, which is real normal in startups. Here we are in the self-awareness journey. We've built all this content, and we're in the place of looking for people to join our tribe. So the timing of it was also like, oh, this feels so familiar and so scary, and I don't want that. And what if, instead of what is. So I really got myself, upset. And it's super interesting because what happened after we had that conversation, and I thought it was a super good conversation. Like, it was a very productive dialogue, and we both just said, well, let's just leave this conversation. Let's think about, because you started asking about the book at that time.
Well, yeah, this was on Tuesday, right? On Tuesday, we were having ours. How do we move forward? Like we're still working on the book. Melissa's feeling like crap. I can't seem to engage in making any content, right? We even decided, like, hey, let's put the LinkedIn videos on hold for a while, because I was just feeling overwhelmed, or either overwhelmed or disengaged. It was probably the second one.
Yeah.
And so, like, here we are with this project that's just doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And so Tuesday, we were saying, well, what are we gonna do? We don't even know what to do.
Yeah.
So let's think about it. We'll regroup Thursday, which was yesterday.
Yeah. Yes. And we had some fun things happen yesterday, which we don't even have to.
Oh, and the parting thought on the parting thought on the Tuesday call, though, when you and I were talking, was, I think all I said, and I threw it out not in a blamey way, but I just threw it out, what if it's the book? Because I was like, what changed? What was the thing that changed? And the thing that changed was the book.
Yeah.
And so we had 2 days to think about, what if the problem is the book?
Yeah. So right after that, you and I both have a mutual friend who is just an absolutely dear friend. And occasionally, his name's Chris, and occasionally Chris and I will have We
Yeah,
used to
I
have,
think we can use this name.
yeah, I don't think he'll mind. I think he'll be fine with that. Chris and
You said very nice things about him.
Well, I'll have to remember to keep saying nice things now that his name's been mentioned. But usually Chris and I go and have pancakes together about once a month. And since COVID, we haven't been able to, but we do still have Zoom meetings where we'll just kind of get to catch up. So just synchronicity, I had a Zoom conversation with him that same night. And I trust him with my life. And he and I have been through some stuff together too, and he's just such a dear man and such a good listener and a good person to bounce things off of. And he just listened, and he said, Melissa, this sounds, because I was like, and I don't know what I should do about this stupid book, and JJ wonders if we should just stop this. I hate the book. I don't even want to do the book. And but we're sort of stuck, and we have all these, we could go, we should do this, we could do that, we should do this, we could do that. And he just listened, and he was kind of smiling and shaking his head yes over the Zoom screen. And finally, when I stopped, and I talked a long time, I stopped, and he said, "You sound afraid." And he said, "Do you remember when I was in a bad patch, you said the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real?" And I was like, "Stop it. Don't throw my own stuff back at me."
Quit using my own advice against me.
But it was in that moment that I actually realized, oh my goodness, I'm not wrapped around the axle about what projects we're doing. I don't want to do a book. I've been hanging on to that stupid thing because I felt like I should. But in this conversation and in the start of the conversation with you that morning, I really didn't want to do the book, and I was making myself wrong for it. My feelings were just so opposed to it. I was making myself really wrong for it. And then I was feeling afraid that since we were in this little lull of not knowing what to do, that somehow we were replicating what we had done before, which is not the truth at all. But I was so afraid of that. And it like all came crashing down on the same day on Tuesday. So yesterday, when we had some other conversations that we were having, and those were really fun conversations, and we were laughing. Right before we hung up, you said, "Oh, by the way, how did you land after our conversation on Tuesday?" And I
It
was
was like an aside.
It was like an aside. Very sneaky, very strategic. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I hate the book. I'm not doing it." And it was just as simple as that.
And here we are.
And here we are.
Well, I think I wanted to talk about this as a podcast because I just thought it was so, I mean, it's real, right?
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, we want to share,
Yeah.
obviously, our real stories and our real experience.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was wonderful in many ways. Like everyone gets stuck on projects. It's even us who, think about self-awareness all day, every day,
I know.
get stuck having a shockingly low amount of self-awareness on some things. So it's just great. I mean, it's always great practice, and some of these things really sneak up on you in ways that you don't expect, right? Like these past experiences, these past feelings, past companies, past things. Like it's amazing how they affect current projects. What was that fear acronym you used? You just threw it out there.
False evidence appearing real. False evidence is so just
that is very true. That's a good thing to think about.
Yeah, because I think in a summary for me, really what it was I was in my head so much, and I had all these feelings that I wasn't really sitting with and trying to decipher it all because they scared me. Those feelings felt a little too familiar, and I didn't like how they felt, and so I decided I would just ignore them, even though I didn't think I was doing that. I'm the queen of like justification. Oh no, I'm not doing that. But the fear of something happening to our partnership or us being able to work together, which is ridiculous. but it was halting all sorts of creativity because I was getting in my head about something that wasn't even real. So it was a very interesting, like, to come to that realization, and humbly own it. You know, I feel good about humbly owning it.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot better now.
And now we're moving on from the book.
What book?
Everything is right in the world.
What book?
Screw the book.
The book sucked.
No one should be waiting on us for a book, because after this, there's no way we're ever writing a book.
That the other takeaway I think too is, besides the obvious one, that's very obvious. I think to me, the other thing that's really important to think about is when you get yourself into some commitment and it's not going the way that you want, I think it's really important to ask yourself why. Why isn't it going the way that you want? Is it a feeling that you're having that you're just not owning? Because I think that happens a lot. And then, you know what would have been really cool? If I could have given myself grace earlier in the process before my feelings got so amped up and just said, this just doesn't feel right, and I'm going to just own that. I'm going to sit with that. Why doesn't it feel right? And just ask myself some questions and allow a commitment that I made, allow it to be adjusted or stopped if it isn't in my best interest.
Yeah, I think we can all reflect on that. I just, as you said that, I instantly can recall feeling like when I was working on a project that I committed to that wasn't going well, and I decided to not do it.
Yeah.
The feeling after was so much better.
Oh, it's such a relief.
Things get done anyway. It's not like I let the world down. We just figured it out in a different way. So I really like that advice.
Exactly.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. Our mission is to help people become happier and more effective by gaining insight into their own thoughts and feelings. We'd love your support. First, share this podcast with anyone you think might enjoy it. Second, leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast site. This helps others discover the podcast so we can reach more people. And third, sign up for our newsletter at theselfawarenessjourney.com. This will help us communicate better with you and build our community. Thank you so much for joining us in the Self-Awareness Journey. We'll see you next week.